there is reference to the matrimonial home. And of course, for many of us who had seen very many women sent out of their matrimonial home, or where you had judges deciding that women were like people who are riding on their husbands' backs with their hands in their pockets. When we got the new constitution, you now saw that there was provision for women's rights. And it is actually there, even when you talk about women who, after death of the spouse, they were sent away. This changed it should have changed with the Constitution, and the Constitution eliminated all these disparities and provided for different kinds of land. But the question that I ask is, like, for community land. In community land, we tend to think that when we say rights of communities, it is a cover-all. But in research, again, we've done amongst the Hadzabe of Tanzania, the Bato of Uganda, and the Ogiek in Kenya and the Maasai, it is clear that the narrative of community rights protects the broad community, but it doesn't look at what Morris was talking about, the trees in the forest. How do the women fare? And basically this is all provided for in the Constitution. And like I said, I won't go into that. The fact that now we accept a third representation of members of different genders in any appointive and elective post. The national land policy, in my view, was the best elucidation also of gender equality. But there is one disturbing provision in the national land policy, Dr. Swazuri. It says that land rights are only for unmarried women. And because I was involved in the national land policy formulation, I know that this was snuck in after the 2005 referendum. You remember, one of the most divisive issues was whether women should inherit land. And for the policy to go through, it went through in 2009, that was before the Constitution, somebody mischievously removed women and added unmarried. So basically, I am making this point to show that this is not something that we have accepted, even as we have it in our national land policy. The point I'm trying to make is that law is a double-edged sword. Law can empower or it can disempower. Basically, law, like our Constitution and national land policy has done, can provide robust mechanisms for assorting inequality. But you see, law can also reinforce social injustices. And basically, when you look at communities, for instance, when you provide for women's rights and you provide for community rights, and you don't look at the rights of women in communities who may not be able to articulate at that level of rights that you've talked about for women because, for instance, they don't have education, then they fall through the cracks. And that becomes an unintended consequence of law which disempowers women. And in essence then, when one is looking at using law, you have to remove the injustices that are behind the facade of rights and privileges that are guaranteed to all. Because you see, law will provide for rights, but there are things that make it impossible for people to access the rights. For instance, if the court makes an unfair decision, or somebody talked about interpretation, I think it was Dr. Swazuri. We can look at the same thing and see different things, and both of us are right. Can't we? And in essence then, the question is, how do we bring in gender equality when we are looking at the same thing and seeing different things? Law can also be captured by interest groups and status quo beneficiaries. And when they capture it, they are saying, this thing of gender equality, it has become too much. Women are everywhere. Has many of you heard that now this gender equality is too much? And in essence, they're saying now, let us go to the boy child. As a mother of both boys and girls, I am for both women and men's rights. But you see, you can't say gender equality is too much with no facts and figures. To say that let us now move from women and look at others, we have to ensure no gender is disadvantaged. So how do we engender land reform? In my view, this goes beyond policy and law. If law and policy were enough, we would have rested. We would know that the rights are going to be enjoyed. We need to get into the implementation, and I think it's Makolo who talked about that. And we need to see what is it that has prevented women from owning land, even when law allows them.